So we have Bailey up next and then Rachel. Bailey?
Hi, my name is Bailey. I came to this meeting to share my opinion. What I'm going to talk about is the levee. The parkway is meant to be a peaceful place for nature, animals, and for us. Bikers can always go across the bridge. I want kids like me to have a safe place for parties, picnics, and a place to have memories. The problem with bikers is they can hurt kids like me. When bikers go by fast, there's a danger of them hitting someone. My second thing I'll talk about is homeless. When we pave the levee, more homeless can and probably will come and push their shopping carts around. For example, me and my family are walking down the levee and right in front of us is a homeless camp. It gets a little unsettling. I don't want kids like me to just be scared to go over the levee. To restate my opinion, I want the levee to be a safe place for everyone and not to pave it.
Bailey's mom, Emily, and we live across the street from Glen Hall Park, so this project is a major concern for us because we will feel the impact of the increased parking and whatnot. And it's been said a couple times that people will be able to give their input in July as to the design of the trail, but if you're producing an environmental study, aren't you working with a current design for that study? So my question is, once that study is done, how easy is it going to be to actually change the design based on the input of people from the neighborhood? Or will we have a forum to be able to give input now before the working design has gone to the environmental study? It's come up a couple times, but I don't feel like I've heard a specific answer. We want input on the trail design.
So everybody, and if I haven't said this flat out, I'm remiss in not saying it. I welcome input from everybody today. I welcome input from everybody at any point during our environmental review process, at any point during our design process. We have many constraints on what we can do with our design, and that we have to be compliant with all of the flood control agencies and all of the other regulatory agencies that have first say on what can really happen within that parkway. That said, there are many aspects to our design that we welcome input on. If anybody has seen something today that is concerning to them and they want to offer an alternative or anything constructive that we can do to change, we are happy to listen to it. We are going to have other areas where there will be alternatives that we have to look at in how it may impact the community, how it may impact the park, and we want your input on, or as we move forward with that as well.
Thank you. So we have Rachel next, and then Janelle, or Jonelle. Thank you. I have a couple of just logistical questions. Hours of operation for the trail, trash receptacles, benches, restrooms, things of that nature. I don't think I've heard about that at all today. I don't know if that's a question for you.
I will do my best to answer that question. Hours of operation, honestly, many parks are kind of sun up to sundown type of hours. A bike trail is largely, or not largely, but has a large amount of commuters that use it. Sun up to sundown doesn't always work. Jennifer might be able to speak better to that than I can, but the bottom line is, in general, it will not be used much after hours, but there are early morning joggers that'll be on there. There's late night joggers that'll be on there. I live in the general area here as well, and I've been jogging on those trails at 9, 10 o'clock at night before, depending on when children fall asleep. Other amenities for this trail, really all we're building is a trail. We're not adding benches along the way. We're not adding additional trash receptacles. There are all of the amenities that are in the parks that kind of bookend the trail on either side, though, being Glen Hall or Sutter's Landing.
Well, that's a point I wanted to make, is that we currently have programmed a full bathroom at Sutter's Landing Park. It hasn't been built quite yet because of gas emissions from the trash that Sutter's Landing is built on top of, but it looks like we can move forward with that, and we'll have that restroom in place before this project would be built.
Okay, so Jeanette? And then after that, we have Dewey, and we're about 15 minutes from concluding this meeting, okay?
Jonelle Jorgensen, Sandberg Drive, 25-year resident. I heard that there's $10 million that will be available for habitat restoration. I think, Jeff, you said that.
If Prop 68 passes.
If Prop 68 passes, but my question is, what about the repair of the pavement and the ongoing maintenance? What is allocated and what is the source of funding for that?
So every time we add to our trail networks in the city, there is a division within my department, which is Public Works, which is responsible for maintaining those trails. Every time we add to that trail network, the city goes through a budget process. They analyze the size of the infrastructure that we have, they develop a plan for it, and they allocate budget to it appropriately. What's included in that is everything that we're asking about. They would go out there and blow off the trail. They would be responsible for keeping it clear, safe for pedestrians and cyclists, so there's not slipping and tripping hazards. They'd be responsible for performing necessary repairs if there's any large cracking or if there's damage during a high water event, something like that. Our department does go out and perform those repairs.
And just to let everyone know, if you need to, you want to talk to Adam, I put his email address over on the For More Information board, so.
Hi, thanks everybody. The question, I kept my ears kind of perked up when you mentioned earlier about the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the post-Katrina era, that there's regulations that come out or have come out. Have those been, I'm curious, have they been finalized? In other words, I've been concerned that we go through all this process, you create a design, and then it gets kiboshed because they're right in the middle and maybe they finalize a ruling that then our design is not in compliance with. Is that, can you address that issue?
So the two biggest challenges for this project from a regulatory standpoint, or I'll say from an agency standpoint, are working with Union Pacific Railroad and working with Army Corps of Engineers. That said, and this is addressing specifically the Army Corps, we are working hand in hand with them. We're constantly checking in. We're making sure we're apprised of any upcoming challenges that we may have with them, and that goes into both any changing regulations as well as just staffing requirements and needs that they have. Last year was a major natural disaster year, which stretched Army Corps staff thin, which made things very challenging for us just kind of doing our homework on the first steps of this project. So we are working closely with them to make sure that we're addressing any potential changes that may come so we don't have a rug pulled out from under us.
So my next speakers are Joella, Nancy, and then Amanda.
Again, thank you for all coming. Mine was basically the same question as this gentleman had. I realize we're at the infancy of this dialogue, but what about having somebody from the flood control, city flood control come to the next meeting, or somebody from the Water Corps of Engineers come and address this? You saw the flooding last year and how high it would get.
So I did speak to the executive director of American River Flood Control District, who maintain our levees along the American River Parkway on the American River. And they weren't able to come today, but yes, I absolutely have programmed them for further discussion so that they can explain to you in more depth why maintaining the levee would be incredibly difficult for them if we paved the top of the levee, because they were really the principal entity that directed us to the lower alignment, which we started through Southers Landing Park. So they'll be willing to take that discussion on at our next gathering. But if you want more information in the meantime, feel free to email me.
Thank you. So we have Nancy, Amanda, and then Steve. So Nancy.
I'd like to wait my time for Amanda.
Oh, okay. From Amanda. All right. So then after Amanda will be Steve and then Jim.
So first of all, I want to say that I own my home right on the river, and I did absolutely buy it because there's an existing trail system behind my home in its existing state. So I have no qualms about, did my property value go down? I absolutely bought it because that trail was there. So I have a question for you. Is this meeting officially being counted as a public outreach meeting?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean as far as officially. This is absolutely a public outreach meeting. I honestly wish this meeting had come a month ago because I would have liked to get this information to the whole group or in a more timely manner than we could, but the logistics of getting everybody in a room is better done with a already scheduled meeting. There is going to be additional public outreach after that, but this would absolutely be considered public outreach.
Okay, so I want everybody to know that we had to submit our presentation for approval to the RPNA board.
We had to submit our presentation for approval through the RPNA board, and we were asked to make changes to it that did not allow us to fully express our concerns. So I just wanted everybody to know, since this is an official public outreach.
Steve, Jim, and David, and we have about 10 minutes, okay?
Which Jim?
Jim Wong?
Thank you. Steve Cronin here. It was my pleasure to represent River Park for 20 years on the council, and I'll give you 30 seconds of history on this. One of the issues I worked on when I was on the council was trying to improve access for biking throughout Sacramento. And although East Sac, Midtown, River Park are right next to the river, it actually was quite a missing link as far as off-road trails and paved. So we started with the access to Sac State. Some of you remember before that was built, people were trying to cross J Street without an intersection there. Then we worked on the west end. We knew this was going to be the toughest part. I have to say, this is not the most contentious meeting, Joe. I once saw a flood control meeting where they were trying to say they were going to take everybody's property right along the levee. Some of you probably were at that meeting. So this was very polite, actually, and very courteous. I'm encouraged that working together, this community can come up with the design that's going to work for everyone. So I encourage you all to do that. Thank you.
Do we have Jim? And then after Jim, we have David and then Tanya.
Hello, my name is Jim Wong. I live at 130 Sandberg Drive. I've been here since 1973. I've been through a lot of these meetings, and a lot of times it's bureaucracy. And I want to know, because I heard comments about you, and you can say, justify them or not, that it's a done deal. And I'm not going to come to these meetings and waste my Saturday if it's a done deal. Let's tell it up front. A lot of times when state money comes in, it has to be spent. Are you going to spend this money because you got it, or what? So, I want to confront you with it.
So, I think if you've been listening to the presentation, you realize it's not a done deal. There's a lot of environmental work to do, and there's design work to do, and it still has to pass through 2 decisions by council. So is it decided? No, it's not. Is there money that we are constrained to spend because we have it? No, that's not true either. We're pursuing this project because generally on the city side we feel that it provides benefits to a lot of constituents, and for no other reason. Mr. Harriman, presented some ideas about why it would be beneficial to a number of people. And a lot of those I think are applicable. Believe me, I'm listening to all of your concerns. And, some I agree with and some I don't. But it's not my decision. It is a council decision, and there's 2 more bites at that apple and plenty of discourse to be had between now and then. This is public outreach.
Okay, so we have David, Tanya, and Ken.
Hello, my name is David Moffitt. I'm about a 7-8 year resident of River Park. Moved over here from Oak Park to get away from what I hope doesn't happen here in River Park, quite frankly. I'm a designer, I'm a landscape architect with state parks. I design facilities for accessibility, I design facilities for trails. I'm a cyclist, I've been cycling for many, many, many years. One of the things I want to ask, and to preface this, I really don't want to see it paved, but if it was to be paved, have alternative surfaces been considered that would A, preserve the natural surroundings and the aesthetic quality that currently exists down there, and B, it would quell and possibly provide some traffic calming effect to cyclists that would otherwise be going at a faster rate of speed on, say, a hardened surface. And I know that surfaces that can be used, such as a stabilized aggregate, are fairly stable over a period of time, require a little bit more maintenance, but are accessible for those who would require that need. Thank you.
So the response to this is really that we are not in design yet. We are looking at where a trail would go if we're going to put a trail out there. We're looking at what constraints that we would have. We're looking at what impacts we would have from an environmental standpoint if we were to build that trail. And that's what really goes into an environmental document. If the council passes that environmental document, if they adopt the document, at that point we really start our detailed design. And that's when we're looking at what our pavement's going to look like exactly. What type of concerns do we have from an erosion standpoint, from a maintenance standpoint, from an accessibility standpoint? And that would be the time when that question would really be addressed.
Okay, thank you. We have Tanya, Ken, and then Jim. I think will be our last one for today. And just as a reminder, if there are questions that come up or comments, please send them along after. I'm sorry if everybody couldn't get a chance to speak today, but we're almost out of time. So.
Hello, my name's Tanya. I live on Sandberg behind the levee. I'm also the light lady, if you are out that way. Always do lights for every occasion, apparently. My question is, what does mitigation really mean? If the city removes a tree or an elderberry bush, how long until the replacement bushes or trees reach maturity? And where are the replacement trees or bushes planted?
I'm going to defer most of this to my environmental consultants. What I will say while she's making her way up is that when we do remove a tree, and again I want to stress that we're doing everything we can to avoid as many impacts as possible, inevitably there are going to be some of this project. When that's removed, we do our best to replant in the immediate vicinity if we can, if an appropriate site can be located. If not, then we replant or we pay into a mitigation bank which replants for us in appropriate areas where it can reestablish equal or greater amounts of habitat. I'll let Andrea correct me if I got any of that wrong.
That's pretty much right. So the first approach for the mitigation is to restore that habitat where it's been removed, or as close as possible. Obviously, it can be right where it's been removed. And then, of course, the next is to look at off-site mitigation. So if there's an area nearby that it's somewhat removed from the site or further away, you look at planting in those areas. And the mitigation in addition to the mitigation banks, that the mitigation ratios are typically not 1-to-1 for restoring that habitat. They're higher than 3-to-1, or it depends on the negotiations with the agencies, but typically it's around 3-to-1. So you're getting more new habitat. Yes, there is a temporal displacement of that habitat, and that's taken into account in the mitigation process as well, with working with the agencies.
Just because I have an environmental consulting background, I'm the RPNA president, so I can cheat and make a comment here. There's a big area of non-native trees out there that I think could be removed and replanted with natives if there's going to be trees and shrubs removed. So I would urge the city to consider that, because I've lived at that little forest for a long time, and it bothers me that there's this little forest of non-natives out there.
Okay. So we have Ken next, and then our last speaker today is Jen.
It's obvious that this comes down to those that want to ride their bikes on a smooth trail and those that would like to have a natural area to walk. And my question goes like this. Sac State is paved on top. To me, it seems like the logical alternative might be to create something on top of the levee past River Park. What I want to know is, have you guys explored the issue of an alternative surface that the Army Corps could work with to have something on top of the levee?
So I'm hopeful at later meetings this will be addressed directly by, it probably won't be a Corps representative, but it would be a representative from the American River Flood Control District. The surface on the top of the levee is only a part of their concern out here. That being that the equipment they put on there would damage that surface, and they can't take responsibility for ongoing maintenance on it. But again, that's only a part of their concern. What they're really worried about is the impedance of their ability to maintain, patrol, and ensure the safety of that levee, more so than just the surface being provided on top of it. It's the conflicts with other users that they run into up there that is really their primary concern.
Thank you. So then I have our last speaker today, Jim.
Yes, Jim?
Is it Jim Jerry?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you. My name is Jim Geary, and I am not a member of this area, and I've never been a member of this area. However, I have lived in the Pocket area for almost 40 years. I moved to the Pocket area when I-5 ended at Fruit-Cutsinas. So I've seen that entire area develop, and I can make two observations from someone who's up on the levee almost daily. One, the unpaved portions in the Pocket area are the only portions that have ever had a homeless camp. Ever. The paved portions have never, ever had a homeless camp. And there's a reason for that. The areas that are developed with pavement have kids, grandmothers, grandfathers, babies, elderly people, middle-aged people walking on the pavement. When you go to the portion that is unpaved, almost all of them stop. The other observation I'd make, let me make two. One is, children riding on a levee are much safer than children riding on a bike lane. The other is, the homes that back up to the paved portion of the levee, without exception, are more expensive per square foot than the homes that are directly across the street. So that gives you an insight into Sacramento's feeling towards paved parkways and the value of homes. Thank you.
So thank you everyone for providing comment and listening. Doug's going to close out the meeting really quick. Hold on a second.
So I just want to thank everybody for coming, and I especially want to thank all the people on the panel. for coming out and spending 4 hours of their time. And I really want to express my appreciation for everybody being incredibly civil. It just reinforces what we all love about River Park. So thank you all for coming.